So, hey guys, and welcome to our next session on marketing management. So, in the previous session, we looked at how to manage marketing information system. What are the properties that are there in a marketing management or marketing information system, and how to obtain customer insights and how to utilize customer insights to perform research and to improve the product or the service or any aspect of the organization itself. Today, we're going to look at business markets and buyer behavior. So, before we go through this, let's look at what data rights are when it comes to customers, and let's also look at how companies perform marketing in different ways to make sure that they are able to influence the behavior of a buyer. So, to start with, customer data rights. So, we already know that every customer has their own personal information. An organization cannot ask for personal information of a customer, especially when the information is very private to the customer. So, to get an example of this, when you go to a shop, there once you buy whatever you want to buy, some shops ask for your phone number. No, it's not compulsory for any customer to give their phone number, but some shops do ask for your phone number, and we generally provide it. So we don't know what the retail organization or what the organization themselves will be doing by taking that phone number. So, what happens is generally when we do provide our contact details, the company would use it for marketing purposes. Let's say you provide your contact details to the organization. The organization has a list of purchases you have made. The organization has a list of times you have gone to the shop. The organization knows whether you are a person who purchases often or whether you're a person who purchases very less in that organization. So, based on that, the organization will provide offers to you. If you're going often, again and again, they may provide some kind of offer. If you have not gone to the shop after a long time, they may provide extra discounts asking you to come over to the shop. So there could be such cases where companies use this because you guys know whenever a company asks for the phone number 2 or 3 months later or something like that, you can expect a call or an SMS from them with an offer details. So one thing is they are not specifying that they will be using your number for promotional purposes, but they use it. So it's up to a consumer to protect their own rights and tell the company that no, I do not want to share my phone number. No, instead of phone number, if they ask for something more personal, would the customer be willing to give it? Things like Wi-Fi details, things like his friend's contact list. No, some people may be thinking that this is all too personal. I would not want to give it. But there are some companies who take data through your phone, through your apps, or through different methods which are not right. So, as a company, if we are supposed to market, we are supposed to know which data of a customer can we get, which data of a customer we cannot get. So, these are some things that we as an organization for marketing should know. So to understand this, there's something called GDPR. We call it as General Data Protection Regulation, which in other words, is always making sure that users know what data is collected from them. Let's say we are marketing through an application. If our application is collecting location of the user, we are supposed to inform the user and take their permission before taking their location. If we are reading their friends contact list, for example, Truecaller is an application which reads friends contact list. There are many other applications which read friends contact list for um, app-based referral purposes, or there are some which take your full name, your location, your address. There could be many other things. Whenever an organization is taking these, they are supposed to take the consent or take the permission of the user, without which we should not collect any personal information of users. Now, these rules are more strict in European countries. So, there, if you are performing marketing and if you are taking information of a customer without prior consent, you will be facing hefty fines and removal of your product, service, or app, whatever it could be. So this is where privacy of consumer is very well protected. It should be protected, and no organization should ever take up any customer's information without their consent. So one of the examples that can be taken for consumer privacy breach is the example between Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Now this happened in 2018 where Facebook was fined for over $5 billion. So what had happened was for political advertising. This happened during the US elections, for the US elections. So for political advertising, they had taken up Facebook users' personal data, including their messages, their posts, their likes, and everything, which are completely private and should not be taken up. And they were sold literally to Cambridge through Cambridge Analytica and were used for political advertising without any consent of a single user. So, of these 50 million plus users' data which was breached, which was used without consent, this is where the Privacy Act through General Data Protection Regulation came into existence. Came into existence as in it came to the forefront. So this is where they were fined over $5 billion. So a lot of companies still do some things like this and they are caught now and then again. But one thing we should always know is that whenever you are taking up personal information of your user, whether it's for your own promotional purpose or whether it's for any other promotional purpose, you're giving it to a third party, whatever it could be, you should always take the consent of the user. So this is one thing that's pretty huge nowadays. So continuing ahead from this. So let's try to understand how consumer markets work and how buying behavior are influenced by organizations when they start trying to change their marketing strategies. So in this part of the session, we're going to mainly look at how buying behavior is influenced by different marketing strategies. We're going to take an example of one of the common food products, that is Maggie, to understand how they influence buying behavior by changing their marketing strategies. So, to start with, you guys probably know that it's a common noodles that we get for a really small price. So whenever anybody talks about this particular product, that is Maggie, they end up remembering a few things with it. So the first thing they always remember is what is there. So the concept that they had, which most of us remember well, is the title that you guys see on top here. That is Maggie 2 minutes. So every time you saw an ad, you pretty much knew, or every time you thought about Maggie, the first thing that comes to your mind is the phrase that is, it will be done within 2 minutes. So this is the kind of marketing that they did. They wanted to market it to a particular consumer segment. They wanted to market their product to the segment who would not have enough time in their daily life. Working mothers, working fathers, people who won't have enough time in the morning to prepare breakfast. So, because of all this, they created the idea of this thing called within 2 minutes. So, what they did with this was, so in short, they had this plan that we're going to make our marketing as this product can be prepared within 2 minutes so that everyone who has limited time can buy it. So, this is how they marketed their customer segment. Followed by this, the next thing they did was they created these small stores called Maggie stores. Maggie stalls is what they used to call. So what they did in here was they used to sell it for a very low price. So everywhere where people wanted to have something to fill their stomach for a low price, they used to go there. This is how they used to target a different customer segment as well. So to market differently, to market their product differently, as you guys can see in the right side image that we have, they had this marketing strategy at one point of time saying, you have any picture or story with us of how you use Maggie in your daily life, share it with us. This is what they said. So when people used to share these things with Maggie over social media, it could be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it could be. When they shared these things, it became a consumer generated marketing for them. People marketed it, people marketed the product for themselves. So when they created this marketing strategy, like if you have a picture or a video or a story of how you use Maggie, share it with us and you could get featured on our page, or you could get featured on the package of our product. When they started doing this, hundreds and thousands of people started sharing their own stories, pictures, and stuff. So with this, the company started gaining more consumer oriented marketing. Followed by this, people started to get to know more about it. This is one way how they improved their marketing strategy. Now, another way they did was, you guys can see on the top of the screen that you guys have an image that that was the earlier version of the packaging. It just said 2-minute noodles because their main marketing strategy was that it can be prepared very quickly. Then there were some issues stating that where people started to become more health conscious, people were starting to feel like, hey, noodles is not that healthy and everything. So they started changing their strategy, changing their product slightly, and then created a new marketing strategy along with 2-minute noodles, which they called it as 2 minute mein khushiya. In other words, happiness within 2 minutes. They added one more tagline, a trademark line of theirs, calling taste be health be. In other words, it's tasty as well as healthy. So for those who are looking for health conscious quick food, they can go for this. This is something that they started thinking of as well. So these are just examples of one organization changing their marketing strategy at times to fit the consumer trends, or to make sure that they are in sync with the customers. They're making sure that they're giving the customers what the customers want. So these are some things companies like these often do. So the next thing we're going to look at is to understand how customers respond to different marketing efforts. Now we saw one example of a noodles company just before, how they changed their marketing strategy towards their customer segments. When people started becoming more health conscious, they changed it slightly. When they realized their customer segment has to be the people who have less time, they created a tagline and marketed based on that. They also created a customer generated marketing strategy as well. So we will look at how consumer behavior works, how it changes, how to understand and analyze it, and then convert it to make our own brand engagement, as well as to modify the purchase behavior of the customer to make them purchase our products. So, first question we're gonna answer is, how do customers respond to marketing efforts? Now, we don't exactly know the right answer to this because not every customer responds to the marketing effort in the same way. One consumer may think this is a really good ad, this is a really good marketing strategy, I would love to buy this product, whereas another customer may not even care much about that marketing strategy. So it is important to understand what goes through a customer's mind. So once the marketing agency is able to understand how a consumer thinks, how a consumer's thought process is, what goes into the decision process for buying a product for a consumer, only then they can make it into a really good marketing strategy. Now we call this as a black box. The decision process of a consumer, we call it as a black box because whenever you have a box that is completely covered in black, you don't know what is inside it. You have no idea what's inside it. So likewise, a customer's decision process, characteristics, and behavior towards buying a product is also a black box. Unless you open up the box and figure out and understand what is inside it, it is very difficult to understand how to market to them effectively. So, this is what we are going to look at in this part of the session now. How to understand a customer's behavior, how to understand a customer's decision process, what characteristics come into play to affect the decision process. So there are a lot of factors that affect a consumer's behavior. Things that are cultural, things that are social, that are personal and psychological. So let's look at these one by one and understand how these characters play a part and how can we as a company's marketing agency or as an organization tap into these customer behaviors and understand how to target or how to segment or how to influence the buying decision process of the consumer. So when we talk about characteristics that affect a consumer behavior in terms of culture, these are the points that we look at. But before we go through it, let's figure out what exactly culture means here. What exactly cultural consumer behavior or cultural characteristics exactly mean. Cultural characteristics are the ones that consumers learn over time in their life. It could be something they learn at a young age, that everything should be sustainable, everything should be health oriented. It could be something like that. Or it could be a culture where a person learns from their religion, from their location, from their family, that they learn from their young age and they stick with their culture. For example, take a look at this. Now, McDonald's made these two marketing strategies during Eid as well as Christmas. So during Eid, they marketed their product, whether it's French fries or whatever it is that could be their product. They marketed it as something very much close to festivities of Eid. They marketed it as celebrate Eid with McDonald's. Likewise, they marketed it for Christmas as well in the right image that you guys can look at. So, this is how an organization can directly market based on cultures of people. So, the first one is marketed towards one culture, and the second marketing is towards a different culture. So, this is an example of culture based on religion. And when it comes down to marketing, it cannot be based only on religion. It can be based on many things. It could be also based on something such as values learned over time. Things like health consciousness. Something like having a product which is purely organic or purely health based, something like a green product. So, another kind of characteristic affecting consumer behavior are subcultures, particularly geographical or religion based. It could be something like a product is marketed only for Asian Americans, or it's only for Hispanic people, or it could be only for some sect of people. So this is where subculture based marketing can also happen. So an example for this particularly in India was when McDonald's started to introduce their Maharaja Mac as a product, which was particularly oriented for Indians. So their idea was to make sure Indians were provided with a royal feel. At the same time, they were marketing it only for Indians with that particular name. Other ways that customers can be affected in terms of marketing strategies is their social class, or in other words, their position in their society. It could be their occupation. it could be their income, it could be their education or their wealth. These are some examples of social class. For example, a person with higher income is obviously prone to buy better or more costlier products with better quality. A person may also buy products depending on their occupation. If there's a person whose work is a delivery boy, for example, a person who travels a lot as a salesperson or whatever it could be, then they would look for vehicles which provide good mileage, good value for money in terms of fuel put in. Whereas another person who's in a really good white collar job, they may look for a vehicle which looks classy, immaterial of the amount of fuel that it takes. So this is where even occupation comes as a factor for certain social classes or certain societal roles as well. So the next way that consumers are affected is through their networks, is through the people around them. So this is generally categorized into four. So the first one is word of mouth influence. So if you're buying a product and you either like it or dislike it, whenever one of your friends or anyone in your family member or anyone in your social circle talks about buying such a product, buying such a similar product, you will provide your experience with that product as well. Let's say, for example, if we are talking about mobile phones and you're planning of thinking, let's say you're planning or thinking of buying a mobile phone, and I would say that, hey, I have bought this mobile phone. It's really good. I've used it for maybe a 6 months or a year. It has given me no issues. You can think of this, is what I would say. Or if I have bought a phone which is really bad, its quality is pathetic, then I would say, I've got this phone, now I hate that I have it. You buy a different one, is what I would say. So this is where word of mouth influence within your social groups help a lot. And the other thing is something called opinion leaders. Now we know that in every friend circle there is one person everyone goes to ask whenever they want to buy something. If it's related to technology, there's one person you may go to ask, or people may come to ask you. If it is food products, if it's something else, you may go to ask a particular person always, because they are good at these sort of things. So you call them as opinion leaders. So these are the people who provide opinions on buying products of a particular category to you whenever possible. So using this idea, whenever you want to buy such a product, you go ask the opinion leader's idea. So that is one person's idea, one person's opinion that affects the whole social group as well. One more example is online social networks. See, whenever you want to buy some product, you go onto Twitter and search about that product. Whenever you want to buy something else, you go on Facebook or you go on Twitter and you post a question. I'm about to buy this. What's your opinion? What do you guys think? Or you just search for that product name and see how other people have experienced about the product. So this is one way where social networks are also used. And the last way is family, where if you're planning to buy something, you would take suggestion of your mother, your father, or your brother, your sister, or anybody in your family. So this is where family members play a huge role in impacting a person on what sort of products they may buy. This is where consumer groups are also affected. That is, their buying behavior or buying decision is also affected by people around them. So the next factors that can affect a consumer's behavior are personal factors. Now, personal factors, again, as we discussed earlier on, there is something called societal position or social class, where occupation is a part of social class. Now, we discussed about occupation, a social class. That means their buying behavior depends upon how others within their own company, others within their own organization, or their friends may have a certain societal position. So it may depend in those terms. But when we talk about personal factors, occupation here in terms of personal factors depends on a person's opinion without even depending or without even considering the social class, without even considering people around them. For example, if a person is working a job where there is a requirement for tough clothes, it's not an office job, it's a hard work job where it may require physical effort, a lot of it. So that may result in wear and tear of dresses. So it could be something in a garage, it could be something like this. So they would require clothes which could be easily cleaned, clothes which are tough and rugged. So for this, they may prefer a company such as Red Cap, the image that you guys see here. So this is a company which provides cloths for occupation basis, that is particularly the clothes or uniform style clothes which are very tough and rugged and easy to clean. Another personal factor that may affect is the age and life stage of the person. If the person is very young, if it's a youth, they may be willing to spend more thinking that, hey, I can earn more money. But if the person is a preserver, they are saving money, they are not young, they want to make sure that they save as much as possible. They would just want to buy something which they can get things done with. For example, a young person may be expecting to buy a really classy phone, like iPhone or something. Whereas an older person will not be willing to buy such a phone. They may be willing to save more money and buy something simple, such as a simple phone with basic capabilities. So this is another personal factor which affects without the person depending on any social networks or any outside influence such as family or word of mouth influence or culture or anything like that. This is purely personal opinion of that one person. So another example that can be taken up is economic situation. So the next thing we can talk about is economic situation. Now we pretty much know that when a person does not have enough money, they cannot buy a product which costs a lot. When a person has more than enough money to spare, they may be willing to purchase a product which costs a lot. So this is a simple case scenario that states that economic situation defines a person's buying behavior. Now, this is a personal factor of that person. It does not depend again on anybody around that person. Now, one more thing could be a lifestyle. Now, think of this. There are, let's say, a bunch of friends, five people, and four of them like really good vehicles. Good vehicles as in sports vehicles, sports bike or sports cars. So they may buy it. All are capable to afford sports cars, let's assume. Four of them buy it. But the fifth person has a lifestyle, has a mindset, has an attitude to be as eco-friendly as possible. So instead of buying a sports car, the fifth person goes away from their general stigma, general way of thinking of the group to buy an electric vehicle. This could be the person's personality, his own lifestyle, his own way, his own self concept. So these are personal factors that affect a buying behavior of a customer without taking into account of things around him or her. So the next set of factors that affect the behavior of human in terms of buying products are psychological factors. Psychological factors are divided into various categories, as you guys can see with the triangle over here. So the lowest of all or the most needed of all is the physiological needs. There are basic needs like water, food, shelter, clothing, and everything. So the one level above it, once we have the things that are basic needs, would be safety and security. Things like health, employment, personal security, resources. So there could be a lot of purchase behavior based on only the social needs. So followed by this, the next is love and belonging. Something which a person may be willing to buy based on their friends, based on their people in the family, and so on. Then comes their own esteem, to be recognized, to have their own different self-esteem or to express their own freedom to buy whatever they would like to. And to top it all, the last psychological factor that comes up is self-actualization. That is the desire to have as much as possible or desire to become the most that a person can be. So based on these psychological factors, they are all dependent on a few things. The first thing every psychological factor dependent on is motivation. Unless a person is motivated with a certain freedom, with a certain recognition, with a certain status, or unless a person is motivated towards getting better security or towards getting a better vehicle, the person will not be buying it. So the first psychological factor in terms of reasons that come into existence is motivation. That is, unless a person is motivated to buy something, that person will not. And the second thing is perception. Each person will perceive the same product in a different way. We know that a person can perceive a product as a product that is essential, whereas another person may perceive that product as unnecessary and deem it as something he would never buy. So, motivation and perception are two very important parts that affect the psychological factors. Followed by this, the next factor that comes into picture is learning. So, so learning is where the behavior of a person changes based on the things that the person looks around. So this could be that a person is learning by looking at other people and the products that other people have bought and then decides, hey, this product is good, let me buy it, or these services are nice, let me give it a try. This is a part of learning which also affects the psychological factor of the person. And the last one is belief and attitude. Belief and attitude are something that a person carries with them over a long time. It could be something like whenever you talk about cameras, a person may say, hey, Sony and all these companies are from Japan. So Japan probably has the best cameras in the world. This could be one of the examples of psychological factors, whereas a belief and attitude may affect the person's priority in terms of which company or which product to buy. So when a person thinks that hey, Japanese cameras are the best, even if a different country like Germany comes up with a better camera, that person's psychological factor states that Japanese cameras are the best, so I'm gonna continue to buy the same. These are beliefs and attitudes. So from these we can see that all of these psychological factors are affected by these four points, that is motivation, perception, change in behavior or learning, and beliefs and attitudes. So going ahead with this, I want us to look at perception particularly. Now we know that in perception, a person believes something in their own mind, and that is what the person will look at always. When it comes to perception, there are three types. A person can be selectively attentive, or they can have selective attention towards some products. In other words, I can look at 100 products, but I give my selective attention to only 5 of those 100 products. So my perception is that only these 5 are getting my attention. These 5 are getting my view. The rest of the products are not. This is selective attention. Like for example, you're going off to a mobile shop, there are 20, 30 different phones, but you're looking at only two or three kinds of phones, two or three companies, or two or three brands. So you're looking at only those. This is an example of selective attention. Selective distortion is where you are parting away or you are moving away from certain products. That is, you may not want to buy a certain product, you may want to move away from it. So when there are 30, 40 different mobile devices in a shop, you do not like one particular company. So you selectively distort it. Distort means it does not look clear, it looks fuzzy. So you selectively remove it, or you do not provide your attention towards it at all. You provide your attention only to the other products. So this is example of selective distortion. So apart from this, selective retention is where after you go through a few products, You will only remember a few. You will not remember all of them. You will only remember a few based on your perception, based on your perspective. You will not remember the rest. This is selective retention. So perception depends on these three psychological factors as well, and each individual will have their own way of thinking when it comes to perception. A person can have selective attention to a particular brand of mobiles. A person can have selective distortion to a particular brand of mobiles. Or when a person looks at all brand of mobile devices, they can have selective retention only of some. So this is where perception helps a customer either accept or reject certain companies or certain products. So followed by this, when I talk about learning, when we talk about in the third part of psychological factors, learning there is change in behavior, this is often done with these five concepts. So a person will not be learning or person will not be willing to learn about a new product. A person will never be willing to learn about a new product, a new service or a new device unless they have the drive to do that, unless they have the motivation to do that. So once a person has the motivation or the drive to learn about a new product, then they will provide stimulation to their brain by learning about the new product, by learning about the new product as in by getting cues, by getting information in short about the new product. Once the customer or potential customer has the motivation to learn about a new product and they get information about it, based on the information they will create a response in their own mind. That response could be that hey, this product is not so good, or this product is very pricey, or this product is good for less price. It is exactly what I'm looking for. It could be anything that they can come up with a response. So once they come up with a response, then they will create a new behavior in themselves. That is, they are learning again. In other words, they are reinforcing their learning behavior in their mind, stating that hey, I've learned about this product, I had the motivation about this product, I stimulated my mind by learning cues and information about this product, and the response that is coming within me is that this product is worth the price. That is why I am now going to think that I'm now going to reinforce my mind that this product is going to be worth it, I can pursue it. So this is the kind of learning behavior a person can go through. So this sort of drive and determination to learn about a product can come from advertisements, marketing, or various other ways. Now, apart from this, the next point we looked at were beliefs and attitudes. We looked at attitude, for example, a person may say that hey, Japanese cameras are best and they will not buy any other company cameras. But there could also be belief by a person such as one based on knowledge. A person may look at things, research it, and create an idea with their own knowledge that hey, I've compared these products. Product A is much better than product B, so I'm always going to choose product A. So they can do this by researching and creating knowledge, or they can create their own opinion. That means their own belief, their own idea that hey, I think this product could be good. This is my opinion. Let me try it. It could be that case. Or it could be something like blind faith. For example, everything a particular company A produces is always going to be good. So, with that blind belief, that person will buy everything company A produces irrespective. This is an example of how beliefs play a factor. So, followed by this, in our next session, we will learn about buying decision behavior, how a person makes decisions in terms of buying products, how it affects a person's future buying decision behaviors as well, and so on. But before we do that, we need to know a few points in short. So those are different kinds of buying behavior. It could be complex, dissonance, habitual, or variety. A complex buying behavior is where a person learns and goes through a lot before buying. That is, the person will go through the information of the company, the person will go through the information of the product, the person will develop their own beliefs, their own attitude, they will evaluate the product, they will compare it with other products, and then they will buy. Generally, people go through complex decision or complex buying behavior or complex buying decisions when the product that they are buying is costlier and they would have to invest a lot, or it's a one time purchase. Things like a car, things like a mobile phone, things like a vehicle, or whatever it could be. So these, or a laptop. So when you think about buying these, you are spending a lot of money together. So you start analyzing, you start developing your own beliefs, you start creating your own attitude or idea towards the product. You evaluate and compare with others. Only then you buy it. This is an example of complex buying behavior. Dissonance is a kind of buying behavior where before the product is sold to you, you will be very confident about the product. But once you receive the product, once you start to use it, you will not be confident about the product anymore. You will feel discomfort about the product because it may not be good, it may have some problems with it or something like that. So company needs to look at customers who have this dissonance behavior. So whenever a person has reduced buying behavior after purchasing a product because it is not worthy according to them, or it is not as good as they thought, or it has some problems, it may have something missing or something like that. So as marketers, a company can talk to the customers after they buy. Hey, you have just bought this product, how do you feel about it? Let us know. Companies generally do this by sending a mail or sending a message. So once they send a mail or a message, the customer will feel like, hey, let me respond. They will respond saying that I bought this product, but it is not good. It is not up to my satisfaction. Then the company will tell the customer that, hey, whatever you bought the product is actually good. This, you're using it in a wrong way, or it is probably not correct. We will refund it or we will replace it. It could be any such behavior that the company may take to make sure that the person will not feel discomfort about the product. And if that happens, if the person feels discomfort after buying the product, he will tell everyone never to buy such a product. So that word of mouth affects. So for this, companies will always make sure that they are sending a message or sending a mail to the customer asking, you bought our product, how do you like it, is it good according to you, and so on. So the next thing we have is habitual buying behavior, where a person buys a particular product and they keep on buying the same thing in repeatedly because they like it and they would not want to change the product. It could be something like a kind of coffee, a toothpaste, a kind of uh, let's say fuel from a particular place, or whatever it could be. Habitual buying behavior is you buying the same product every time. So it could be something as simple as kind of rice to the kind of coffee powder or anything like that. A variety seeking behavior at the last are experimental customers where they keep on trying different products, new products. Like, for example, today you've tried one kind of coffee powder. Tomorrow you're going to try a different one. Day after tomorrow you'll try a different one. Because you're looking for different things. You're seeking variety. So these are the four types of buying decision behavior of customers. It could be complex, it could be dissonance or post sale discomfort, it could be habituated, or it could be variety seeking. In the next session, we're going to look at how these buying decision behaviors are in form of steps, how we can affect them, and how we can market towards them.